Hi, I'm Carl Weber. Welcome to Video Aided Instructions English Grammar Series. This is the Parallel Structure program. Now, I know this program deals with English, but let's begin with a little bit of math. Do you know what parallel lines are? They're lines that run in the same direction. Railroad tracks are parallel lines. So are the two side rails of a ladder. Now, in geometry, parallel lines are used to make squares and rectangles. In English grammar, we don't use parallel lines, but we do use parallel words and groups of words when constructing sentences. Parallelism refers to using words and groups of words that run in the same direction. In other words, words, phrases, and clauses that have the same grammatical form. As you'll learn in this program, some kinds of sentences require parallelism. We'll look at when and why parallelism is needed, and you'll learn some basic rules that will help you construct parallel words, phrases, and clauses to make your sentences as solid and sturdy as a well-built stepladder. The basic principle of parallelism is fairly simple. Here it is in a nutshell. Parts of a sentence that have similar meanings should be written in grammatically similar forms. Now, this principle is simple, but the specific applications of the principle are varied and somewhat complex. In the rest of this program, we will look at some more specific rules that grow out of this basic principle, and we'll look at many examples of sentences that require parallelism and look at exactly what this requirement means. Here's our first specific rule that will help you apply the principle of parallelism. When listing two or more things, qualities, or actions, describe them in parallel grammatical forms. One of the most common types of sentences that requires parallelism is one that contains a list. Very often when we're writing English, we have a need to list 3, 4, or 5 things in a particular sentence. And since all these items are on the same list, that means that they naturally have similar meanings. Since they have similar meanings and are being listed together, they should be written in grammatically similar forms. In other words, the same grammatical shape ought to be applied to each of the items in the list. When the same grammatical shape isn't applied to each item in the list, then the sentence sounds wrong, and we will have violated the principle of parallelism. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Read this sentence. America's founders were prepared to risk everything, their property, their reputations, and would even risk death. Now, in this sentence, as you can probably recognize, 3 things are being listed. After the colon, the 3 things that are being listed are things that America's founders were prepared to risk. Now, since we have a list of 3 items here, we have 3 things that are similar in meaning, and therefore they should be set up in grammatically similar form. Has that been done? Let's look at the 3 items that are listed in this sentence. First, their property. Second, their reputations. Third, and would even risk death. Now, are all 3 items written in grammatically similar form? Not really. The first 2 are written in the same grammatical form. Their property, their reputations. Here we have nouns, property, and reputations preceded by the possessive pronoun their. However, the third item is listed in a different form. Would even risk death. Suddenly, a verb has been inserted, would risk, and this changes the grammatical form. So the 3 items, even though they have similar meanings, are not being set up in grammatically similar form. Instead, that third item should be changed to match the other 2 in grammatical form. Since the first 2 items read their property, their reputations, the third item should read their lives. After all, that's what's being risked, their property, their reputations, and their lives. Notice that we have to change it from death to lives to make it parallel both in meaning and in grammatical form. So the correct sentence following the principle of parallelism ought to read, America's founders were prepared to risk everything, their property, their reputations, and their lives. If you want to emphasize the importance of that third item, you could use the adverb even and insert that as well without violating the principle of parallelism. You would simply be emphasizing that this third item in the list is the most important and dramatic of all. And the sentence could read, America's founders were prepared to risk everything, their property, their reputations, and even their lives. This sentence now fits the principle of parallelism, which applies whenever a sentence contains a list of similar items. Here's another example. A Marine recruit is expected to be physically fit, psychologically tough, and mature in his emotions. Now, once again, the sentence contains three items that are similar in meaning. And once again, the principle of parallelism has been violated. The first two items are written in grammatically similar form. Physically fit, psychologically tough. In both of these phrases, we have an adjective, fit and tough, preceded by an adverb, physically fit, psychologically tough. However, let's look at the third item in the list. Mature in his emotions is written in a different grammatical form. We do have the adjective mature, which describes what a Marine recruit is expected to be, but rather than being preceded by an adverb, like physically or psychologically, instead the adjective mature is being followed by the prepositional phrase in his emotions. Therefore, this third item in the list sounds different from the other two. It isn't set up in the same grammatical form. So once again, the principle of parallelism has been violated. We need to make a change to correct this sentence. How could you do it? Well, there's actually more than one way to correct it. Probably the easiest way to correct the sentence is to change the third item in the list so that it matches the other two. We could therefore rewrite that third item so that it contains an adjective preceded by an adverb. Now, if we want to do that, what would be the proper adverb to precede the word mature? Since the meaning of the sentence refers to mature in his emotions, it makes sense that the proper adverb to use would be emotionally. And the sentence would then read, a Marine recruit is expected to be physically fit, psychologically tough, and emotionally mature. Now the sentence fits the principle of parallelism. All three items that are being listed are set up in grammatically similar form. Now, in this case, we changed the third item to make it match the other two. We could also change the first two items to make it match the third if we wanted to. But then the sentence would contain longer phrases and would be a little less concise, and therefore wouldn't read quite as well. We could do that, however, if we want. The sentence could then read, a Marine recruit is expected to be fit in his physique, tough in his psychology, and mature in his emotions. I think you can see the sentence is a little less effective that way. It's more concise and therefore more effective to use the adverb-adjective form in all three items in the list. Either way is grammatically correct, however, because either way we would be following the principle of parallelism, which says that when items are being listed, we need to set them up in grammatically similar form.